Hello, welcome to the Death by Disney podcast. I'm your host, Adam, and I am trying to watch absolutely every film that Walt Disney Studios ever made, the animated versions, the live action, things like Marvel, and I'm trying to do it as much as I can chronologically. Today's film is Peter Pan. And I've been hinting at the fact that I really don't like this film for many episodes now. But so today I'm going to explain in great detail why Peter Pan is probably one of the worst Disney movies of all time. Alright, but if you don't know anything about the story, here is a little bit of a synopsis from Wikipedia. Peter Pan is a 1953 American animated adventure fantasy film produced in 1952 by Walt Disney Productions and released by RKO Radio Pictures, based on J.M. Barrie's 1904 play Peter Pan or the Boy Who Wouldn't Grow Up. And that doesn't really have any of the plot. It's basically about this kids who go to this place called Neverland, and they have different adventures there, and there are lost boys who don't grow up in the film. So I'm going to give you some trivia of this film. I'm going to tell you how I feel about it, and then I'm going to tell you how other people feel about it. And I'm going to have a little bit of a discussion with the film. So here are two things of trivia. Though the film was a modest success, Walt Disney himself was dissatisfied with the finished product, feeling that the character of Peter Pan was cold and unlikable. However, experts on J.M. Barrie praise this as a success as they insist that Peter was originally written to be a heartless sociopath. And Walt Disney was right, and they're right. So why make a story about this guy who's a sociopath? Hard word to say. And this bit of trivia has been taken from the Internet Movie Database. And one more. Unlike the voices in the animated films today, which use and are promoted by big name film stars, this drew a lot of its voice cast from the radio, a medium where actors are used to performing solely by their voice. Bill Thompson, who voices Smee in the film, is one such example. I think that this trivia is a little bit of a modern perspective on that. Like, oh, they don't use big stars, they use radio stars. But at the time, this is 1952, people on the radio would have been big stars, right? Television was just starting. So you had movie stars and radio stars. So it's kind of like today where you have big, movie stars voice characters. It was exactly the same thing. So I just picked that bit of trivia because I think it shows how people's perspective on things change through time. Alright, I'm not sure if I want to talk about other people's opinions about this film first or mine. I think I'm going to talk about mine first. And so, what I do is I have a blog, it's called Leverton Review. So, I post everything I watch or read or listen to. There, I give like brief reviews of everything. So, and then I take that and then I put it on the Internet Movie Database. So, this is going to be, I'm going to read literally what I wrote because I think I can't really express it any better. So here it goes. Here's my opinion on the disaster of Peter Pan. Peter Pan takes all the worst aspects of the early Disney films and combines them into one muddled mess. It is no exaggeration to say that it is my least favorite Disney film, and I am trying to watch all the Disney films. So what's so bad about it? The most glaring thing is the overt and obtuse racist depictions of the so-called Injuns. They are depicted as monosyllabic, literally read, aggressive, and stupid. You might say, well, what's the problem? They're in Neverland. They're not real people. It's racist, and it's just part of the general racist attitude towards Native Americans that exists in our culture. It's even worse than in Dumbo, because in Dumbo, the racist characters, for the most part, are animals, so they could kind of get away with it. And while Song of the South is structurally racist, at least they had real African Americans depicting characters. Here you have animators who made choices in an animation studio, which made a choice to depict people who exist in real life in hideous ways. The animation is really muddy and not clear. It looks like a cheap cartoon from the 1990s, which is surprising because earlier Disney films had high quality animation. Peter Pan's face looks ugly, but that's because they based it on his voice actor, Bobby Driscoll, and his face is also not the best looking. And I don't know if it's a Disney problem or an original source problem, but Peter Pan is a psychopath. He cuts off Captain Hook's hand for fun and then feeds it to a crocodile. And then at the end of the movie, when Captain Hook plummets to his death, he just watches and does nothing to rescue him. And it's not like Captain Hook is some kind of evil person. He's just mad that a boy fairy cut off his hand and wants revenge. His motivations are, if not pure, understandable. Every character that Wendy encounters who is not Peter Pan tries to murder her, except for Captain Hook, actually. Tinker Bell tells Lost Boys to shoot at her. Some mermaids she meets try to drown her, and this is all played off as some kind of joke. The Lost Boys themselves are these weird sorts of hostages who have been kidnapped from their real families and start to, or rather have forgotten their families. One of Wendy's brothers also starts to forget his mom, and Wendy reminds him of her, and so they want to go back home, and in the end of the movie, they go back home, but what about the Lost Boys? So yeah, I would say there are much better adaptations of this play than this one. You're not really missing out on anything if you don't watch it. So that's how I feel about it. Like, it's incredibly racist, and there are movies that are also incredibly racist. Like I mentioned, Song of the South, incredibly racist movie too, but it's less racist than this because you get the idea that Native Americans don't exist anymore and they're kind of like an imaginary group of people who have gone extinct, and so you can depict them however you want, but no, they're real people, you know. And like all real people, they have their flaws, they have their advantages, disadvantages, depending on the individual character of that person you are talking about. Yeah, so strange. So, I'm going to give you a negative review from the Internet Movie Database and a positive review from the Internet Movie Database. And a lot of the negative reviews talked about the racism. So I tried to find a negative review that didn't talk about that. So this is only one reason to not let your kid to watch this by Nikolaev0519, May 2020. This is great movie. Great in that way, that is masterpiece. But only reason why I would not let my kid or anyone else's kid to watch it is, or to read book, is origin of story. It is heartbreaking. Kids would love it, but when they realize that story is written like Good Wish for Barry's friend's past 6-year old daughter, and this is his representation of afterlife. Also, his brother died too young. I read a lot of things about this man who was married twice without children. I will say this too, after all this years, after book was published, people are divided about his goodwill towards children. He adopted his other friend. A lot of people are not thinking at any moment that maybe he didn't have kids because he too much wanted them, and this stories and this last thing were only way for him to be a father. Um, so I read it literally how it's written, and obviously it's clear that the person who wrote that, they're, oh yeah, it's 1 out of 10 stars, by the way. The person who wrote that, their first language is not English, so it's kind of hard to say what they're trying to, like, to understand what they're trying to say. I think they're trying to say that, well, I have two theories. One is that they're trying to say that Barry might have been a pedophile. Um, and I'm not sure about J.M. Barrie, but I know that is the rumor about Lewis Carroll. But I'm not sure if J.M. Barrie also felt that way. But he's also maybe saying that maybe that was my dark interpretation of it. Maybe this person is saying that, you know, the the idea of the story comes from the sadness that this man would never have children of his own. Maybe, but if that's true, then why make the character such a sociopath? you know, such a such a psychopath. All right, but there are people who do like this film, surprisingly, and this is one of them. 10 out of 10. Wonderful by T.U. Su Faley 25 January 2003. Except for The Jungle Book, which I watched every day as a kid, Peter Pan was probably my favorite Disney film during my childhood. Why? It's in the story. I mean, who hasn't been a kid and wished they could fly or do something else magical at least once in a lifetime? Neverland is a place kids dream about, having adventures with Indians and mermaids and pirates. That is what makes this film so wonderful, that despite its simple plot, its less than complex characters, it is something that brings back memories. It is something that kids can relate to, and something that teenagers and adults can watch and think, I remember when I used to wish I were like that. There's no real moral, just a simple story that is purely entertainment. And that is why I loved this and The Jungle Book so much when I was a young kid. Now older, my perspectives have changed, but not even Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, and Mulan, my three favorite Disney films, have such sentimental value to me as those two films do. It's just a shame that the sequel to Peter Pan was horrendous. I hope they don't do the same to The Jungle Book this February. Um, yeah, that's interesting. I could see if you were a kid and you watched this, how you would really, really love it. But I think I must have watched it when I was an adult, when I was a child. But seeing it as an adult, did not like it. And interesting that they mentioned The Jungle Book. So I watched that yesterday, and I have to say, that's one of my favorite Disney films. There's not any racism in it. The story is very simple. It's wonderfully animated. There are some parts that are a little bit I could live without, but it's really, really up there. Like, I would say, maybe I should do a list of Disney films I actually like, but I've only done maybe like 15. Maybe when I get to um, a milestone, if I do 25 episodes or something, or 50 episodes, when I do 25 or 50 episodes, I will come back and say, I'll do a top 10 list. But Cinderella is up there, and The Jungle Book is definitely up there. And, there's the opposite list, too, of movies that are really, really bad. But people, there are movies really bad that everybody accepts are really bad, like Song of the South. And then there's movies that people love for some reason, but also horrible, like Dumbo and like Peter Pan. Yeah, so if you want a good movie to watch, go watch Cinderella. Go watch The Jungle Book. Go watch The Reluctant Dragon. Go watch uh, The Three Caballeros if you want a more obscure reference to a good Disney movie. Okay, I'm going to tell you what is coming up next week. Next week is a live action film called The Sword and the Rose. So, yeah, please come back. I know a lot of people, they listen to the more popular Disney films and the episodes that I do about the more popular ones, but come on. Like, talking about things you've never seen before is also interesting, and then maybe you can find a movie recommendation that you like. So, also subscribe to the podcast, tell your friends, and leave a review. Thank you. Have a great week. Bye.